Is companion worth accompanying, or are you better off alone? Stay tuned to find out.
Thank you for coming along. Sit back and relax. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Robert Reacts, where I react to things. Thanks for joining me. Today, I'm reacting to 2025's Companion, a sci-fi thriller released on January 31st, 2025, featuring an all-star cast. We're talking about a stacked cast of young Hollywood here. There's Sophie Thatcher, who you'll recognize from Yellow Jackets and Boogeyman. Jack Quaid, who is from The Boys and Novocaine, which is coincidentally the next movie I'm going to be reviewing. Megan Shuri from Never Have I Ever and It Lives Inside. If you haven't seen It Lives Inside, run. Lucas Gage from the first season of White Lotus and Smile 2. Harvey Guillen from What We Do in the Shadows. Love Harvey. Jabuki Young White, who is a very funny stand-up comedian. If you have not heard of him, his Twitter is genius. He loves to troll, and he does it in the most... It's perfect, the way he does it. There's Gus. And Mark Menchaca, who is from the movie Sick, and another movie called No One Gets Out Alive, which I'm definitely going to be reviewing for the channel because not enough people are talking about this movie, and it has one of the most beautiful monsters I've ever seen in a movie. Just stunning. Like, couture. Doing okay back there, Gus? Everything okay? Yes? All right. And I feel like I keep repeating this, but I feel like it's important to remind you that this is the first movie I watched after a series of disappointments, and guess what? Call her Domino's because she delivered, baby. Really had a good time with this movie, and part of the genius of this is one of those movies where you want to go in uninformed. Like, don't even watch the trailer if you haven't seen it. You know, one of those movies where the less you know, a pretty big plot point. And I find it interesting because I think some people notice that the trailer gives that away and others don't. So I guess it depends on how closely you're watching the trailer. And if you haven't seen the movie at all, stop what you're doing. Don't watch this video yet. Go watch the movie and come back. Because like I said, I want to give you the best experience possible, and knowing the least amount is amazing. I went in knowing like a tiny spoiler, and I can admit that if I hadn't known that, it would have been an even bigger reveal when you do find out what the twist is. Although there are lots of twists in this movie. Let's see, what can I say without spoiling anything? I love Sophie Thatcher. She is new Hollywood royalty. She smolders in literally everything she does. She is an artiste, and I can't wait to see more from her. I also love that Jack Quaid is in this because he keeps proving that not all Nepo babies are relying on the nepotism. Some of them actually have talent. And also, like, I was struggling whether I wanted to acknowledge the physical attractiveness of the actors in this film, and I decided I'm going to go ahead and do it. What a gorgeous combination Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan have created in the form of Jack Quaid. Like, beautiful. Just beautiful. I love that we're in the, like, I have lived long enough to see the children of big Hollywood stars become Hollywood stars themselves. Megan Shuri is genius, and I already said, if you haven't seen It Lives Inside, run. Lucas Gage is a treat every time. It's my favorite to have there be someone like Lucas Gage, who is a leading man in Hollywood, who is very much out of the closet, very much working all the time, like golden age, maybe. I don't know. He did do a movie with Zachary Quinto, who I feel like a lot of people don't know about this movie. It's called Down Low, and it was actually a really good time. It's a combination of horror, comedy, action. It's all of it together. And there's a sweet ending to it. There's just like a very sweet, kind of intimate ending to it. Amazing movie. And then there's Harvey Guillen, who is my style icon. Like, I wish that I could dress the way he does. I wish I had the funds to dress the way he does. And one day, I just might. Harvey's charm is inescapable. He brings it to every role he has, and this movie is no exception. And Mark Menchaca is just really great at playing a brooding bad guy, that's what he plays in Sick and in No One Gets Out Alive. And this one, he's more of a bit character, but worthy of noting that he is a great actor himself. And I mean, a beautiful goon of a man. I happen to enjoy a man who looks like he's in the mob. That's like my fantasy. Anyway, enough about that. Rotten Tomatoes gave this movie 94% from the critics and 89% from the audience, which sounds just right where it needs to be. It's a movie about a very 21st century nightmare, and people who love horror and action movies are going to love this one. Again, I'd compare it to another movie, but I don't want to spoil anything for you. Not yet.
Warning! Warning!
Okay, so this is your spoiler warning. You have 5 seconds to leave the video. 5 seconds. Your 5 seconds have begun and are almost over because guess what? Spoilers begin and now. We start the movie off with Iris, who's played by Sophie Thatcher, describing how she met her boyfriend Josh for the first time. And it's a very dreamy kind of sequence that I think is supposed to elicit questions. It's like, I have questions. There's something funky's going on in this movie, right? And it's a meet cute at the grocery store, and it's just this is the filmmakers being like, "Hey, get your notepads out and write down these questions that you have." We then see Iris and Josh getting ready for bed, and it seems like Iris is a little bit of a chatterbox.
Oh my God!
Josh tells Iris to go to sleep, and she does, which a little awkward, but question. The next day, we see them traveling to a lake house to meet with friends. So it's going to be Kat, who's played by Megan Shuri, and couple Eli and Patrick, played by Harvey Guillen and Lucas Gage. And Iris seems concerned about seeing Kat because she thinks that Kat doesn't like her. And so there's a lot of focus on that, which seems to be a very common trope, I guess, of these friends meeting at a lake house type movies. I believe the remake of Friday the 13th had a very similar concept like thrown in there. There's also Sergey, who is Kat's boyfriend, and he owns the lake house that they're all staying in. And something about Sergey's character reminded me of Lee Pace's character in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. There was just something about the way this character is presented to us as if it's like, here is red herring on a silver platter. So the next day, Iris is hanging out by the lake, and Sergey follows her there, and he makes this comment about knowing about her, and it could mean anything. And then he tries to sexually assault her. And Iris fights back and ends up killing Sergey. And so she runs back to the house, covered in blood, and she's trying to explain to Josh what happened. And Josh seems a little less concerned than he should be. And he tells Iris to go to sleep. And she powers down. And this is when the reveal happens that Iris is actually a robot. More specifically, a companion robot that he is renting from a robotics company called Empathics. Very futuristic type of name. So he's renting Iris, the robot, from Empathics, and her emotions and intelligence can be controlled by an app on his phone.
There's an app for that.
And he then shows Iris how to adjust the settings, which is like, what are you doing? You're teaching the robot how to be smarter than the human. Why are you doing this? So Josh and Kat are discussing shutting down Iris for good. And Iris breaks free. She steals Josh's phone and runs into the woods, where she then boosts her intelligence from 40% to 100% and becomes the MacBook Pro of your dreams. Back at the house, Josh admits to Eli and Patrick that he jailbroke Iris and was able to increase her aggression level and disable her inability to do harm. This is similar to the new Chucky movie, where it was a disgruntled employee who put a microchip into one of the Chucky dolls so that he can harm people. And the whole point was to get Iris to kill Sergey so that they could steal his money, because supposedly he was in the mob and there's all this other stuff. Eli and Patrick were invited to corroborate this story, and Josh and Kat insist that Patrick should not receive a share of the money because he's also a companion. I will say, I had a feeling. We met everyone when they show up at the lake house, and there was something about Patrick's character that seemed a little bit too agreeable, like somebody was telling him what to do, how to feel. So Eli grabs a gun from Sergey's safe and they split up to find Iris. And Patrick puts together that he's a companion robot, but he doesn't care because he loves Eli so much. And again, this is his programming that's getting him to do this. And there was something about this storyline that really I don't know if bothered me is the right word, but it affected me in a strange way. It feels queer. The fact that there would be this character like Eli who, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say it probably felt the need to turn to a robot for love because of what society has taught him and maybe what other members of society have taught him in terms of his physical appearance. And I don't know if that's unique to me because I'm plus size. It was something that it stood out to me as like uniquely a queer thing. Because I don't actually believe, like, where the storyline with Josh and Iris, I don't actually believe that a straight man would be taking his companion doll to, like, to a lake house for the weekend. I don't buy that a straight man would take a companion doll out for dinner or to the movies or to the mall. Like, you would not take them out of the house. Most likely because they'd probably be filthy, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, let's move on. So Iris finds Patrick and shoots Eli during a struggle with the gun. And she then runs back to the house and tries to escape in Josh's self-driving car. And she's able to change her voice to sound like Josh, which is wild.
Dewey's got our voices.
But of course she is, because she is, like I said, the MacBook Pro of your dreams. And it's like the filmmakers were we're here like, okay, what are all of these absurd nightmare fantasies that we can create about the way that humans feel about robots or the fear of robots having an uprising and taking over humans? It's all there, and it's done in a pretty great way. So Josh uses Sergei's phone and reports his car as stolen, which causes it to stop and lock Iris in there. And then Josh resets Patrick to be his companion. And this is where things got like real strange to me. The fact that a straight man was willing to be queer to essentially commit murder and steal from this supposed mob person. It just, the juxtaposition of suppressing his truth to be convincing to a robot that they're in love in order to get the robot to move past the idea of who he loves and move on to, you have to catch this person. It's the juxtaposition of that is wild to me. And just for the filmmakers, if you're watching, wasn't lost on me. That's wild. He also disables his inability to do harm and increases his aggression. So basically everything he did to Iris. And so he sends him out to find Iris. And another thing that I find interesting here, and I guess like maybe a little bit of a plot hole, is this concept that the average person can move mountains with technology. And I guess maybe most people don't understand this, but people who code for a living have their equivalent of misspellings, which you need another human being or a robot that, or an AI trained robot to go in and find those quote unquote misspellings in their code. This is just the average person who has trained to do coding. So then you have someone like Josh, who probably has not trained to do coding, who is like, beep, bop, boop, you're a killing machine now. It's just this is, I think, akin to us seeing technology in the 90s where they had CCTV footage that you could zoom in and the image was still crisp and clear and you could make out the person's face and print it out and all this stuff. It's just, this is not how technology works, but we already knew that because we're watching a movie. Iris is stopped by a police officer after she finally breaks out of the car, and Patrick shows up and kills the police officer. And then he brings Iris back to the house, and that's where we see Kat, who is just like disgusted by everything that's going on, trying to leave with her cut of the cash. And this is when we find out that Sergei was never part of the mob. He was just a boyfriend. So she wanted to kill him, which is such a strange plot point. Josh orders Patrick to stop her, and Patrick ends up killing Kat. Josh then calls Empathics and tells them that he has the robot captive and that they need to come and get her. And he's claiming that she's malfunctioning, thinking like he's one step ahead of the robot people. And then he has this argument with Iris, and she starts to belittle him, so he sets her intelligence to 0. And basically, she has so little intelligence that whatever he tells her to do, she does. So he forces her to melt off her skin and then convinces her to shoot herself in the head, which forces her to shut down. Then the empathics workers arrive, and Josh is telling them what happened and how she shot herself in the head. And they're like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. Shooting herself in the head, that only disables her Wi-Fi. All of her memory is stored in her stomach. We'll take a look at the footage and let you know what we find out.
Okay.
And so Josh is not a step ahead of the robot engineers. And so he sends Patrick to kill these two workers, and he kills one, but then Iris is able to reboot herself and intervene before he's able to kill the other person. And so in that whole thing, in that whole struggle, Iris is able to remind Patrick somehow, like wake up his memories of Eli. I remember now. And Patrick feels bad for what he's done to Eli. And so Patrick shocks himself in the mouth with a cattle prod and basically kills himself. The worker who Iris saved decides to give her full control of herself, freeing her from the app's control and essentially making her a real girl, like Pinocchio. Iris returns to the house, and her and Josh have this struggle, and she ends up putting the corkscrew, like the auto corkscrew, in his head and telling him to go to sleep.
Where the hell's the corkscrew?
And then the corkscrew stabs him in the head. The next morning, we see her peel the burnt skin off of her hand, and there's like a Terminator 2 situation where we see the metal under the burnt plastic. And she's driving away with Sergei's money, and there's this funny moment where she sees another car, and there's another companion that looks exactly like her, and she waves with her mechanical arm, and the companion robot is like confused. The cycle continues. And that's Companion. I mean, this movie playing on the idea of robots becoming smarter than humans and then trying to overtake them, and all of the realism that you feel for them. The realism is a lot in this. I hope this never becomes a reality, by the way. It's too much. It's just too much. Having a realistic human being as a robot, that's way too much. It's way too far. Don't do it, technology. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
But it does beg the question, if you could build the partner of your dreams and they were a robot, would you do it? And would you be satisfied knowing that this person is essentially an echo chamber of your feelings for them? Or, more accurately, your programming of them. It's like such a big existential question. And I mean, and then take it a step further, military defense strategy. Should we be having a bunch of robot people as soldiers? Interesting that this movie brought all of this up for me. It was also cool to see the love link scene, because the companions all have love links to their human. And so watching it play out in the same scenario, but a little bit different each time, was very interesting. And it's this, it brings up this idea of like the sliding doors concept, where if you were like 5 minutes late to an event or something, how would your life change? And if you were somewhere, like I said, if you were somewhere different geographically, how would your life be different? These are just a handful of ideas that generally keep me up at night. There was something relatable for me as a queer person seeing Eli and Patrick have the conversation where Eli's trying to convince Patrick that he's not a robot. And it felt like a queer argument. It's just like there's something about being queer and being in a relationship that really resonated for me within that conversation. And I'm not saying that I'm dating a robot. At least I don't think I'm dating a robot. I don't know. No spoilers on this end. Ugh, could you imagine? No. But it reminded me of how wildly different our arguments, our conversations can be, to the point where you'd even need a translator for a heterosexual person to understand what we're even talking about. So that was something that also came up for me. I just want to know, queer people in the comments, let me know if you can relate to that. So this movie reminded me of the movie Megan and A Simple Favor. Like they combine the two. More A Simple Favor than Megan, obviously, but there were elements of the companion robots in this movie that did remind me of Megan, but the intrigue and the secret keeping was very similar to A Simple Favor. And I already mentioned how I saw this movie after a series of disappointing movies. And so I only bring that up again because I'm curious as to whether I'm overhyping these movies and I'm reacting to seeing something that is creative and unique after a dry spell in terms of that sort of thing. I'm also curious, I have not reviewed a movie that I hated on this channel yet. I'm kind of excited to do it because I feel like more comes out when I'm not loving the film. But I would be curious to hear from someone who saw this movie and had not seen a bunch of disappointing movies before it. What did you think? The mixture of comedy, action, drama, and gore was really well done, and I feel like this movie's not getting as much attention as it should. So it's really interesting that this movie was able to weave all of that together in such a creative way. And I do appreciate all the questions that this movie is forcing the viewer to think about. So my overall feelings, I'm going to give Companion 9 robots out of 10. I definitely enjoyed it, and I would say if you were intrigued by Megan, but you found it to be too juvenile, you'll definitely enjoy this movie. It's asking a lot of the same questions that Megan did, but in a different context, and it's a little bit more mature. And you can watch this in the comfort of your own home thanks to Amazon. You can use the link that is appearing on your screen right now, or use the link that is in the description box below this video. When you use our link, we get a small commission, and it costs you nothing and helps keep our channel going. So thank you for using our links. And be sure to like, share, subscribe, and come back next time, and I will see you there.